How's everybody? Everybody good, as far as you know? I saw a post on Facebook that Wyatt McDonald's in the hospital. He's got a really big blockage in his widowmaker and another pretty good sized blockage in another artery. Stented the widowmaker.
And they go to try to do just medicine to take care of the other.
Medicine for the other. The other one was like 90 something. The other was 60, I believe is what I saw. But so keep Wyatt McDonald in your prayers. I went for my walk day and I saw his truck at home, and I thought,
I thought that.
That's strange.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
That's what I had said to Marcia. I said, wonder how Wyatt's doing. I said, I hope he's doing all right. And it's odd that you'd say stuff like that.
Yeah, and then
You come back
found that out. Keep.
I see you at Frankfurt.
Is it Frankfurt? I didn't know where he was at for sure. Keep Pat Gravitt in your prayers. They had her uncle's funeral today, so keep Pat in your prayers. Anything else going on we need to know about? Anybody? Got anything else going on? Anything I've forgotten about? Failed to mention? No? All right, Dave, start us off in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come here tonight to study your word, and we ask that you be with each of us to help us to learn from your word and to keep it to our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right, Romans 13, 8 through 10, we're almost there. We're getting closer. Closer every day. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Hey, Amber. We're going to get mushy tonight. We're going to talk about love. Love is the fulfilling of the law. Paul starts off by saying, owe no man anything. Owe no man anything but to love one another. Now let's have a really fun conversation tonight. You owe anybody money? Anybody got any debt? To owe means to owe money. It means to be in debt. To owe money or to be in debt. Whether or not you want to be, from time to time you're going to have to borrow money. And you're going to be in debt. Anybody here ever needed a new car but you didn't have the money to buy it? What'd you do? Nowadays you rob a bank. Steal a car. You steal it. You rob a bank, steal the car. You figure which one's going to get me less time. You go to the bank, you borrow money, or you go to some financier and you get the money. You pay that off. What does it feel like in between the time where'd my marker go here? From the time that the debt begins until the payoff, what was that time like in between? How'd that feel? Did you? Yeah, that's exactly right. So we can put in however many long years. Every month when it's time to make that payment, what do you say? Don't say that out loud. There might be kids listening. What do you say every time you make that payment? You say, I've only got 192 more of these, right? It's 192 more. Have you ever gotten close to paying off a debt and you could feel it? You said, I've only got 6 more payments. I've only got 4 more payments. I've got 2 more payments. I've only got 1 more payment. Then the car breaks down. You have to buy a new. I'm joking. That's a terrible joke. I shouldn't say that. It's a wonderful feeling when you get to that place where you can pay off the loan. But from the time that debt begins until you pay it off. Now, I know I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but it can be kind of terrible. Has anybody ever done this, especially when you were young? You said, I got to have that truck. I've got to have that car. I've got to have that motorcycle. I've got to have that boat. I've got to have it. And they said they'd finance it for me. It's only going to be 26% interest, and I could get, you know where I'm going with this, right? You got to have it, and you get it, and you're like, ooh, this is all mine. And 45 days later, you say, why am I the way that I am? Why did I do this? I'm paying $800 a month on a car. It's upside down. I can't do nothing with it. That's a terrible feeling when you're in debt. That word owe can also mean to fail in duty. Or in other words, I failed to accomplish or do something or get something done, so now I owe something. Have you ever disappointed somebody? Or have you ever let someone down? How does that feel? Any of you all as parents, have you ever gone through difficulties and your children, you felt like they kind of took a hit, they kind of paid a price for what was going on, whether it was your fault or just circumstances in life? Have you ever felt that way, though, like you let your kids down? Like you go through something and then you say, you know, now that I've overcome that, I really feel like my kids got the short end of the stick. I feel like I let them down, I owe them. Or you let down your spouse, or you let down your parents, or whoever. How do you make up a debt like that? How do you make up a debt like that when you feel like you owe someone because you let them down? What can you do? I mean, how do you do that? To owe also means to not show goodwill to somebody when you should have. Let me explain what that means. It means that for whatever reason, maybe, oh goodness, we've all had one of those days, haven't we, when we're just not on our game and we're just not as nice to people as we should have been. We don't show the kindness we should have shown. We don't have the same posture, the same way of handling things, and you might have got a little short with the drive-through cashier or the waitress or whoever it is at the store. And you go home and you think, I was a real jackwagon, you know? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been that way. Or maybe you get a bad attitude because of circumstances in life, and you let that kind of overflow into how you relate to everybody else in the world around you. They didn't do nothing to you, man. They're guilty of nothing. They're innocent. And then we're like, you know, we really shouldn't have done that. Now we feel like we owe them for what we did. The same feeling when that loan, Gary, what's the word I'm looking for? When a loan begins, what's the word you call that, the fancy word for that, when a loan starts? When you first begin it, it's not amortization. There's some word I'm trying to think of.
What did you say?
When a loan begins, when a debt begins, there's a word you use for it. When you sign the contract, it's now in force. There's a word I'm trying to think of. But from the beginning of the loan until the payoff of that loan, that same feeling you feel is the same thing you feel when you experience letting someone down or failing. There you go. The origination of a loan. Thank you. Good. I would not have slept tonight if you had not told me that. I'd have laid awake all night trying to figure that out. You've let someone down and you failed. It's a very similar, well, it's the same feeling, really. Circumstances are a little different, but it's the same feeling. All of us would love to be able to erase. And I don't mean erase like make them go away. Like, I took out $100,000 in student loans so I could learn how butterflies eat chipmunks. And now I don't know how I'm going to pay it back. Oh, Papa Biden, please cancel my debt. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about erasing debt, meaning paying it off. Paying it off. I was here at this church when the church paid off the note on the property down here by the firehouse where the Dollar General's going. I remember they had a ceremonial burning of the note. And what they did is that symbolized that the debt had been erased. It was gone. They were no longer bound by that debt. There's not a one of us in this room that would ever want to be in debt. I don't even care if it's for things like a home or a car. You don't like it. You wish you didn't have to be in that position because there is a burden, and I mean a great burden, that comes from being in debt to someone. A huge burden. I've known people that would rather borrow money from Adolf Hitler than from their own family because of the feeling of knowing they owe someone something. Well, anyhow, I was going to tell a personal story, and I don't think I will. In terms of our debts tonight, I'm not going to ask you for a list of your personal debts, but we're not going to talk about finances. That's not. While we can relate to those, we're not talking about finances. What is the context of Romans 13 been up to this point? Do you remember last week what we were talking about? Paul said to show respect/honor to those who deserve. In the context of the respect and honor he was referring to were those. Now, when I use the term government, yes, there are gross and terrible mismanagement of government affairs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your judges, your police, your sheriff's deputies. While there is corruption, come on, man, let's be honest. Isn't it nice to know that there are people who are going to come if you call, and they're going to put their life on the line to defend you because that's what they signed up to do. They took an oath to do that. That's what we're referring to here. There is the law of the land. So with this in mind, when Paul says, owe no man anything but to love one another. And then he goes on and he says, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law for this. Don't commit adultery, kill, steal, lie, covet. If there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. Is it possible that what he is referring to is a debt of honor and respect? Hear me out. Do not massacre me. Just hear me out. I'm a young man, and I know I don't know a lot about life. But I have pastored this church for 9 years, and the last 2.5 of them have been absolute hell in our society. It has been. And because of what we've seen in the political sphere, there are a lot of people who have a very poor view of our government. Okay? Well, let's go back further than that. We can go back through the last 4 or 5 years. But regardless of what is going on in the world around us, how are we supposed to act as believers? All of us in this room are a believer in Jesus Christ. Are we allowed to act like the world? No, thank you. Are we supposed to take on the visage or the image of the world? In other words, should we model our lives according to what's going on in the world? No, so it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. If you go back, and pardon me, just 1 second. If you were to go back to AD 70, AD. I'm sorry, I'm not cultured and use the CE thing. But if you go back to 70 AD to 100 AD, and you look at the gross persecution, by gross I mean great. If you look at the gross persecution that is being inflicted upon the church during that time, at no point, and I'm not saying that there wouldn't be small little pockets of rebellion and insurrection that you could call out. I'm saying for the most part, the church was not, and I repeat, they were not rising up against the Roman government. They were being persecuted by the Jews and the Romans. Sometimes one caused the other. But they were being persecuted because they said, we will respect the king, but we will fear God. Those two go hand in hand. When Jesus, this is cool, so make sure to remember this. When Jesus is standing in front of Pilate and Pilate says, "Are you a king?" Jesus' response to him was not smart aleck. He says, "That's what you say I am. And because you're the king, if you say I'm a king, then I'm a king. If you say I'm not, then I'm not, because you hold that authority." And remember, he says, "I have the ability to save your life or end it." And he says, "Well, you just overstepped the bounds there. You are not God. No man," and he calls himself God. Jesus refers to himself as God. He says, "No man takes my life unless I lay it down." He gives us a vivid picture of how we conduct ourselves in this world. Jesus willingly, I'm going to write a very, very foul word on the board. Do not repeat this word to anybody. Jesus surrendered to death. But at the same time, he maintained his integrity by saying, "You may sentence me to death, but it is God's or mine to lay that life down." Now, if you think about what happens after Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, just before his death, burial, and resurrection, there's a great disrespect that takes place, and it is done at the hands of Peter himself when he attacks the servant of the high priest and cuts off his ear. And Jesus says, that's not how we do things. That is how the world does things, but that is not how we do things. I do not want to be a part of this category. I don't want to be in line and in league with the world. I want to be a part of the we. I want to be a part of the group that Jesus is in. I do not want to be separate from him. I don't want to be apart from him. I don't want to be in a place away from him. I want to be right there with him. And what he told us to do was to surrender to the will of the Lord, whatever that may be. Now, when the early church faces persecution, there would often be times, you can look at the stoning of Stephen as one of those examples. Stephen was, he was bold. He was bold in his preaching to the Jews. Very bold. Very, very bold. Saying, "You killed all the prophets that spoke about Jesus, and you killed him too. You killed Jesus as well." And they were mad. They gnashed their teeth, which meant they got so angry they went red line. Oh, they were so mad. But Stephen surrendered himself and said, "Lord, let your will be done." Now that process or that pattern would be repeated over and over again by the early church. Okay? Well, now let's look at the last 5, 6, 7 years. Well, it goes back further than that. I mean, we are a spoiled church in many regards, but not us personally, but I mean the church in America, because we have the government on our side. I'm not saying I'm disappointed that we're not being persecuted. I'm just saying that sometimes we forget who we are. Here's what I mean. How many people nowadays within the church, we fear God, right? We fear God. But we're not going to respect that person unless they give us what we want and do what we want and say what we want. If they're not our guy, then they're our enemy. Okay. I'm not saying that it's wrong to disagree with politics. That's what makes us so great in this country, because that pendulum that swings between the two main parties. But I don't know, this is going to sound like I'm an old lady. And I don't even care at this point. I'm so far deep into this mess, I'm just going to keep going. The church in America has lost a lot of respect. Right? It is not respectable. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't show respect. We don't respect those in authority. We don't respect our neighbors. We don't respect our spouses. We don't respect our elders. And elders don't respect those that are younger than them. It's a dog-eat-dog world in the church, and we're all just trying to say we're closer to Jesus than anybody. Oh, that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Which of us will sit at your right hand, O Lord? And what's happened is we've become very selfish. And if we're being honest, we're pretty mean. We're cold. We're cold. That's not a good thing. Yo, dog, that's cold. That's not what I'm talking about. We're cold-hearted, like Paul Abdul said. We don't have that affection for each other. Like, there are people who literally will not show affection to somebody if they didn't vote for a certain political candidate. That's obscene. That is obscene for those of us in the church to act that way. It is obscene that we are happy or unhappy based on whether or not our guy is in office. Do you realize that is like a 4-year-old that comes home and is mad because they don't have any more peanut butter for his peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he's going to do what? Lay on the floor and kick and scream and throw a fit. I heard someone say this one time. Do you know why God did not create us to come out of the womb fully developed like a grown man or woman? Because if a baby were able to, they would choke the life out of you if you did not get them their puffs fast enough. You ever seen a baby go, do you know what they would do if they had the power of a grown man or woman? They would, as my grandmother said, massacre you. They would kill you. They would choke the life, and then they'd be like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That's what a lot of Christians have become. We are motivated by our feelings, and everything runs off of the whims of the world. And if everything is not according to the way we want it, we throw a fit and we lose our minds. We have got to, we can't fix the world. Okay, so just get that out of your head. We as a church, as individual members of that body, we have got to return back to respect. To where we respect one another. We respect each other. We respect those in our community. It doesn't mean we always agree, but we always respect one another. We have this... Am I allowed to say asinine in here? I just did. We have this ridiculous idea. This ridiculous idea that we are not responsible for the actions that we have towards someone that we have got a disagreement with, or maybe that we've had a falling out with. That somehow that eliminates us, that creates an environment where we are no longer held accountable for our actions by the Lord. And there is never a point in our life as a believer that we're not held accountable for our actions, because we don't represent the world, we represent Him. And what Paul is saying to the Roman church, which was full of converted Jews and Gentiles alike, is that you are going to be persecuted by these people. It's going to happen. Who was writing the letter? The persecutor of persecutors. And he is saying, respect those in authority. How many brownie points do you think I'll get for this one, Ellie? Like -12? Something like that? Well, it's true, though. I owe you. I want you to, just briefly, you don't have to close your eyes and get all weird, but I'm going to. But I want you to think right now. Just take a second, take a very deep breath, because you're going to need all the strength you can muster to do this. I want you to think right now, is there anybody you owe an apology to? Yes. Is there anybody that you have wronged with your actions, your attitude? I was going to be generous and say this week. Let's just talk about today. If you knew that you were going to be held accountable for the way you treated that person today, and this was the last night you would have on earth, and you were going to right all of your wrongs before you left, who do you need to call right now? Who do you need to talk to? Or what do you need to do in here? To say, you know, I disrespected, I did not show them the kindness and the affection, the respect that they deserved. That feeling of owing a debt on a vehicle or a home or whatever else it may be, a medical debt, there is nothing like the payoff. Until we clear the slate and we erase the debt, it haunts us. It's with us. And I am begging you, I am pleading with you, there is no greater peace than the peace that comes from knowing that you have heard the voice of the Holy Spirit and you have confessed your sin and you have admitted your wrong and you have said, Lord, I might not be able to go to these individuals and tell them I am sorry because for whatever reason, maybe they've passed away or maybe time has passed and they've already forgiven me and it's time to move on. But maybe there are things that I need to go to them and say I'm sorry for. You don't always see it, but those wrongs that you have committed, they're messing with you all day long. I don't know why I'm so cranky. Don't know why I can't sleep. I don't know why I always seem like my stomach's upset. You ever think maybe it's because you owe someone an apology? That you have disrespected somebody, or you continue to disrespect somebody. Maybe that's the problem. I know I earn no brownie points for saying things like this, but you got to quit all this stuff of, well, the devil's just messing with me today. All the devil's got to do is go boo, and you do all the messing you need to do on yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't go change your little boy's diaper, and he say, I don't know, the devil made me do that. You did it all on your own. You needed no assistance. Think about the messes that you have made today. I'm not, this is not dramatics. This is not me trying, this is about as grassroots, as down to the earth as I can possibly get. This is elementary Sunday school, Bible school lesson. We've got to stop being so arrogant, self-centered, and conceited as Christians. We've got to quit. We walk around and we we curse people, we cut people down, and we don't even bat an eye because we think they're less than human or something. You do realize that puts you in league with Hitler, right? That's twice I've referenced Hitler tonight, and I feel very bad about that. There are things that you and I have done to ourselves out of selfishness, out of just pure meanness, out of arrogance, whatever it is. And we go around treating people like dirt for what we've done. Maybe you've been disrespectful, a lack of respect, a lack of honor. What if you just said, I don't know who's in, or I know who's in office right now. I don't know who will be in office at the end of this election cycle. But wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if even though you disagree with their positions, you could say that you respected them? And I know that's difficult. Well, okay, that was a trap. I know that's difficult for the immature believer. But for the mature believer, you are able to, well, you're not able to get past yourself. You've already gotten past yourself. And you put his will and his desire above your own. And you say, I'm going to show respect. I can disagree. And I'll be honest, I personally can go to people and disagree with them. Completely disagree with where they stand on an issue. 100%. And find a way to speak to them, to talk to them, and find common ground. I'm also very guilty of disrespecting people who are in that position. Because when you become the person on the camera, or you become the person in that seat, now you're not even, you're just a character to people. But it goes beyond respecting the position, and this is where we've screwed up. Respecting the person. We're all individuals. We're all people. Think about yourself for just a second and how perfect you are. And how you never make any mistakes. And how you always get everything right. And think about how wonderful it is for your spouse or your children to have you as a spouse or a parent. Because you're perfect. And they never have to forgive you. They never have to show you mercy. They never have to show you grace. But you're an individual. Here's a little secret I've learned in life. Perfect people have a hard time seeing their imperfections. And perfect people really do believe they're perfect. And because they're perfect, they don't have to respect anybody. They can just step on people and it's okay. But people are just that. They're people. They're individuals. They're human beings, right? Humans. They're human beings, and they're going to get things wrong. I'll say something personally. I would love to be able to go and meet up with a certain politician. Just to have lunch. Just because. Because there's a connection there. And when I say that to some people, they go, I wouldn't want to be in the same county as that person. Let's sit at the same table. And I'll be like, have you ever heard of Judas? Now see, here's the thing about Judas. No one sitting around that table knew what Judas's outcome was going to be except for the Lord. You know, it's a really good place to be. Your kids ever asked you a question before? This is the famous question. Everybody's got, why? Amber, he wants to go to McDonald's and you say no. And he says, why? Oh, because I said so. Yeah. Because I said so. Jesus knew what Judas would do. The other 11 didn't. Matter of fact, when Jesus says, one of you will betray me, what does the Bible say they started doing? They start tripping. Like, Lord, is it me? Now, think about that from a serious aspect. Or think about this from a serious perspective. Nobody in that room had an assumption that Judas was the one. Think about that. They didn't know. So what does that say about Judas's, I don't want to say his life, but you know what I mean. You would have, listen, if there were any suspicions about Judas, I'm telling you right now that the second Jesus said that, Peter would have said, that's Judas. I know it is. He would have called him out so fast. Now I can see Thomas feeling, well, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. Peter would have called him out in a heartbeat. Just like any good parent would say, because I said so. What you're really saying is because I know better. I know things you don't know. Has your kid ever around Christmas time said, Mom, can I get this? Dad, will you get me this? No. Wow, you don't love me. It's because you've already bought it and it's going to be sitting under the tree. You may think that someone is the demon spawn of Satan, that they are the most evil, vile, wretched person God ever put breath in, and you are convinced they are destined for hell. And then they get born again. Then they get born again. You realize there are folks in our church who at one time were at odds with other folks in this church. And then they got born again. And now those parties have come together. Wouldn't it be a shame to waste your time disrespecting individuals because of the actions that they commit in their unsaved state, and then have to look at them when they become born again and know that you acted like an absolute heathen buffoon, and you literally were working against them coming to Jesus because of the way you treated them and the way you talked to them? Don't be that person. Don't be that. You don't know that you do not have access to who's Judas and who isn't. You just have access to Jesus, and he washed everyone's feet, and that's what you should do. Don't try to sort people out. Just love them and let him sort them out, because one day they may come into this body and become a part of this family, and the last thing you want to do is know that you were the person that told them that they were a whatever you fill in the blank with. Respect, love one another. The hardest thing for any of us to say sometimes is I'm sorry, but it should be the easiest thing for us to say because we know the mercy and grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, and we should be the quickest people to say I'm sorry when we are wrong, not the last one to say I'm sorry. We are not better because we are believers. We do not have extra rights or extra privileges above everyone. We are not entitled to step on other people because they are unholy. I am unholy. David said, I am, and look, Lord, take not your spirit away from me. Create in me a clean heart. Is it Isaiah that said, woe, I am a man of unclean lips? Purify me, O God. We ought to be the quickest to say, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Paul says, owe no man anything but to love one another. To love one another. That word love means to be well pleased, to be contented, to be well pleased. In other words, to be happy when you are around that person, to be glad that you are around that person. I would very much appreciate if you did not answer this question out loud, because I do not want your personal business to be thrown out here in front of everybody. But when you come home, does your spouse say, yes, they're home? Or do they say, oh, great? When you walk into the room, does your spouse go, whoa, man, I missed you? Or do they say, wow, I've missed you being here. I'm glad, oh, well, hang on. To be contented. Do you know what the opposite of contented is? Contentious. Like, when you're around somebody or a group of people, are you contentious? Are you always looking for something to complain about? I want to repeat that, and I want to say it very clearly. When you walk into a room, are you always looking for something to be mad and to complain about? Or when you walk into the room, are you content? You have the Lord, and that's all you need. And you love those that you bring that spirit of happiness and joy with you. To love can be used in a social and a moral sense, like I love my wife, or I have a moral obligation to respect my brother or my sister. To love means to be fond of, to be welcome, to entertain. When we think of love, it's not just the the kissy type of love. Love is this feeling where you have a great respect for one another, and people who are not born of the same mother can consider themselves brothers or sisters. Not because they share all of the same qualities and the same personality traits, but because they share the same Father. Now, you and I, believers in Jesus Christ, right? We love the Lord. We love Jesus with all of our hearts. He is the only reason why we are here. The only reason. That's the only reason we came here tonight. Now I know you're saying, well, I came here to be around my brothers and sisters. But you would not be brothers and sisters if it wasn't for him. He's the firstborn among many brethren. He's the firstfruits. So we are here because of his love for us. Now think about when Jesus is baptized, what does the Father say? You hear a voice out of heaven, you see the Holy Spirit descend like a dove, and you hear the Father say, "Behold, my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." That meant that when the Father looked down at Jesus, he said, "That's my boy." That is the perfect embodiment of what we should mimic while here on this earth. Perfect embodiment. 100%. Completely, fully perfect. 100% completely, fully perfect. When Jesus walked into a room, those who were not believers, unsaved, unrighteous, heathens, would say, "Man, that's a good dude right there. He's a good guy." The religious hated him. Couldn't stand him because of that. They were snooty. They didn't think they had the right to, or the responsibility to respect others. They stepped on others. They used them as pawns. They were willing to have a woman who was obviously a harlot. That's a fancy word for a whore. They were willing to allow her to die at their own hands, a scheme of their own doing, to prove a point so that they could try to get to Jesus. That is a complete disregard for human life. A complete and total disregard for human life. And they take it a step further later when they lie about Jesus and when they can find no cause to have him executed. They lie and stir up the crowd to go and lie with them so that they can kill the only begotten Son of God. Don't be those people. There are a lot of Christians today that crucify him afresh by the way they treat others. Hear me out. Hear me out. The lack of respect that I shouldn't say we, I'm hoping we don't do this. The lack of respect that some quote-unquote believers show in their disregard for humanity. Their willingness to just send everyone to hell, to condemn everybody. It's no different than that same spirit that crucified Jesus. Done it unto me. And as believers, what should be our frame of mind? The same love that he showed, we should show. Listen to what John says. He says, not Perkins. He says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust thereof, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. When John uses this reference, the love of the world, or the things that are in the world, remember what we said earlier, it doesn't matter what the world is doing, that's not what we do. That's not who we are. That's not what we are of. We are not of this world, right? As believers in Jesus Christ, we are no longer of the world, but we are of the Father, meaning our frame of reference, our point of being, our whole life is born of Him, meaning it comes from Him. John says, if any man love the world, act like the world. To love like the world. Think about this. What does the world love? Those who have something to offer. If you have a talent or a skill that benefits this company or this other place. Have you ever heard the saying, do not give your life to that company, because the second you're dead, they will replace you and move on. Now, I'm not advocating for slacking off of work. What I'm saying is, corporations sometimes have this idea that you are just a machine. Right? You're a number on their spreadsheet and their expense reports. The world loves those that are beautiful, those that are talented, those that have something to offer, and they bleed that person dry. How many, now don't answer this question, and don't go too far in your data bank, because I don't want to stir up thoughts of the world, but has there ever been a celebrity that you saw, a movie star, entertainer, singer, musician, that was very talented, and whether it be Hollywood or the music industry, they milked that person for everything they could get out of them. And then when that person had personal issues, personal problems, they would just try to cover those things up and try to keep squeezing out as much product they could from that person. They didn't care about the person. All they cared about is what they could get from that person. Does that not sound a lot like the church? You know what I'm saying? Like modern church. It's all about what you can get out of someone, not who you are. I've been a shepherd long enough to know that sheep are sheep. They are. They're pretty much the same. No, people are totally different. No, they are not. No, they're not. When you really get down to the root of who people are people, man. Here, this is how you can sum up people. Everybody in this room has been hurt. Everyone in this room has been wounded. We all have scars. Your story's not the same, but your pain is. Everyone in this room has experienced great joys in life. Wonderful joys. Some of you have kids. Some of you can't have kids. But there are other joys that you've experienced in life. While they're all different, you know what we all can understand? Joy. So we know joy and pain. There's people. There's people. That's people. So when you run into somebody, you know what you're going to find in their life? You're going to find joy. And that's what we like to talk about. We like that. When someone new comes in and they tell us about how the Lord's working in their life and the great things that are happening, we're like, woo, that's awesome. Then you find out their marriage is in the tubes, man, or in the toilet. And you're like, oh, that's not awesome, man. Ooh, that's pain. That's going to hurt. That's work there. You know what the sheep do? They go, bah, move on. That's what they do. Now, hear me. You know what the shepherd does? Let's go. What does the Bible say that we are supposed to do for one another? Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. It does not say, be scared ye of one another's burdens, and therefore reject the law of Christ. It says to bear them. So what should you do when people have problems? You should.
Do you think that means sometimes we wear other people's problems?
We carry them. We pick them up. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like, to me, like, sometimes, like, if I feel like I'm hurting, but I don't really know why, I go back to that verse and think, am I carrying something for Gary to get a little bit of load off his shoulders?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think what you're saying is there are times when you might not even realize it, but you feel a burden for something.
And we pray for it, too.
Sometimes the problem, though, is that we see the burden that someone's carrying, and we go, man, I see that. I see what they're going through. Lord Jesus, please send somebody to help them with that burden. Right? Because I don't like them. They talked about my mom when we were 12. I'm not going to let it go, you know. They voted Democrat in that election one time, and I just can't get over it. We'll stop here, but there have been a few times when I have said, you know, I feel like I've gone as far as I can. Lord, I need you to help me to see what it is that you have in this next chapter, because I've read this book. I've taken you know what I mean? I've got this. What's next? There have been times, as you know, Everett will, I'm sure, agree with this. There are times in ministry when you say, Lord, I know there's a new chapter that's opened up because I'm not sure what's out here next. It's a new horizon. And for our church, and I hope you will encourage everybody to watch these studies, but especially to hear this tonight. For our church, and specifically, speaking of our church, this is not a condemnation by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But we have gone as far as we can with hearing it and having it preached to us. We've got to all, not just some of us, but all of us, have got to start picking people up. Help them. And not looking at people based on who they were or who they are at the moment. But instead, not looking at them as enemies or past mistakes, but looking at them as potential candidates for salvation. And saying, I don't know what the future holds. They may go straight to hell for all I know. But I am not going to be the one that says that or states that. I am going to be the one that does all that I am called to do, to love them, so that I might be a light to them in order that they might receive salvation. And that is not a bystander job. And it is not one person's job, mine or someone else's. That is all of our job. All of us are called to do that. All of us. From the youngest to the oldest among us. There's one thing we're told to do by Jesus. Love one another. Love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. So when we come together as believers, whether it's a Bible study on Wednesday or a church service on Sunday morning, we should come in well pleased. How good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It's like the oil that flowed down Aaron's head, down his beard, down his robe, onto his feet. We should come in here excited because we have to be with our brothers and sisters. not coming in with tension because we want to tell somebody a piece of our mind. Looking at how can I help them instead of how can I alienate them. How can I get involved instead of how can I run? And by all means, not looking at anybody and saying, well, they won't last. You realize you just ran out when you did that. But rather saying, I don't know how, who, what, when, where, but Lord Jesus, I'm praying that somehow, some way, you will speak to them, that you will bless them, that you will be good to them. Even if they're my arch enemy, I want you to change them so that they can become my best brother or my best sister. And leave all this other garbage out there. Don't bring it in here. Love one another. Love your neighbor. Owe no man anything but to love them. To love them. Even those in positions of authority. Love them. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know what happened with Pilate. Do you know? Dave, what happened to Pilate? You were there. What? I don't know what happened to Pilate. I don't know what happened to Pilate's wife. Pilate's wife had a dream, did she not? I said, leave this man alone. There's something special about this man. I know a lot of people dramatize that and they say, well, that was one of the demons speaking to her. I don't know if it was a demon or the Lord. I have no idea. Someone told her. It's not for me to parse that out. I hope Pilate got born again. I hope that whoever, I hope they got born again. I don't know that they did. I don't know that they didn't. We're not a judge and jury. We're servants that wash feet. Right? Well, let's get to washing. What do you say? Not right now, because my feet's nasty, man. You don't want to do that. That was a joke. That was a total joke. Perkins, you want to close this out?